Hi guys, Phantom here for patch 9.24, talking about jungle meta. So, to talk about what is OP right now, there's actually a large variety of what is good and not good when it comes to jungle meta. When it came to top lane, we were able to discuss how the key to winning the game was to play for either split pushing or scaling, and for jungle, you actually have a lot of options. So, for the best jungle outright for solo queue is unarguably Karpis. Karpis is just probably the most reliable way to climb in solo queue if you know how to play him properly. He just has, to put it simple, why he's good is just really simple reasons. It's not because he's a good ganker, it's not because he's a great farmer, it's because his scaling is just outright unrivaled. If you were to look at every single champion in the game, Karpis is probably the scariest when it comes to a late game win condition that's actually reliable to pull off. And it just comes to he hits this point where you can't touch him anymore. His AoE is doing a lot, his Q is doing a lot. If you try to run from him, he's slowing you down. It's just he hits this point where he feels outright unstoppable, and then his ult just does a lot of damage. Like, I wish I could give you this big, like, detailed explanation in why he's good, but it's just a really simple reason. Late game, he makes you go boom. There's no other way to put it. And he's just so easy to pull this win condition off because he, unlike champions like Kale or Kog'Maw, where you don't feel useful until you're like level 16, Karpis begins to get scary as early as level 10, level 11. So that's all it is to it, boys. He's just really easy to do. It's easy to get to that point, and he's probably the best at doing it. Really good, reliable solo queue champions, but they're pretty hard to pull off, so I don't recommend them, would be Nidalee and Lee Sin. They're great at invading, they are great at ganking, they're reliable farmers, and Lee Sin himself, he has a little bit of utility in the late game. His kick, if you know how to use it properly, has many uses. Nidalee just becomes this really oppressive sieging poker where you get hit by one spear and you lose half of your HP. Both of these champions are pretty hard to pull off, so unless you're already good at them, I don't recommend learning them. Um, Easier champions to pull off that are really good would be Reksai, Elise, Olaf, and Echo. The first three are good for the same reason. Reksai, Elise, and Olaf just have a really good early game. They are great gankers. And they both have their own ways to make them useful. So Olaf with his ultimate is just impossible to CC, so he can just run at the ADC very reliably. If you're the type of player who just wants to outright kill ADCs and make ADC mains cry, then Olaf is the champion for you. If you want to be really oppressive at ganking, if you want an AP champion, then go with Elise. If you want an AD champion that's a little bit tanky, go with Reksai. Let's talk about Echo. So, Echo isn't the greatest of gankers, but the big reason you're playing him is for his mid game. With the way his W works for getting off stuns and just making him very tanky and hard to kill, and from the fact that his ultimate does a lot of damage and at the same time making him a very slippery champion, the champion's toolkit's just outright amazing. Echo probably has one of the best toolkits in this game. It makes him a great duelist, it makes him a great assassin, it makes him a great tank. He's just a good do-it-all champion. Where I would suggest being careful about playing them is be careful about playing them into team comps that are good against divers, because Echo's toolkit kind of naturally makes him go into the diver type playstyle. So if you see a Syra or a Janna on the enemy team, be a bit cautious. Going into the A tier blue section, we have Warrick, who has really risen to power. And one of the things that's really made Warrick a great champion is, first off, he really likes the new Conqueror. It just blends perfectly with how he's supposed to play. And then secondly, he really likes the fact that Riot actually paid attention to fixing his bugs. I would say he's still a little bit glitchy. I can't confirm that for sure, but he still feels a bit off in how he functions. But all in all, he does great damage. He's really tanky. I would say his big weakness is that he really relies on getting his items, and if he can't get his items, you kind of feel a bit of pain. He's a very snowball champion though, and he's also really good at securing these dragons. He can sneak a dragon, he can sneak a Rift Herald, solid ganker. He's a good do-it-all champion. Next up, this is a champion that a lot of people feel I'm gonna be overhyping, but I think Talia is just a great champion for a lot of the same reasons that Karpis is a great champion. She's AP and she scales amazingly well. She's hard to play. Her clear isn't the best, but she has great ganks, and when you enter this mid late game form, you are a solid champion that can carry the game on your own. From the way her Q works, she's just really good at either chasing or kiting. Through the way her EW works, she's great at starting off picks, creating fights. Even with her R, she can just seal people off and take away their escape route and say, no, you're fighting me here right now. You have no choice. You can't run from my team. She's just a good independent champion. Where I would say her biggest weakness is if her team starts feeding really, really early, and if the enemy team starts to invade into your jungle, you feel pretty crappy as Talia compared to normal champions. Next up, we have Shaco. So Shaco is a crazy champion. I don't. This is a solo queue focused tier list, but I will take a moment when it comes to talking to Shaco when it comes to a bit of pro play. Shaco is a very crazy champion because he's one of the few champions on this list where if you were to make a pro play tier list, a lot of the champions I have in high tier remain relevant in pro play. But if you were to just convert this to a pro play tier list, Shaco just outright becomes F tier. Like he's not even a champion when it comes to pro play. But when you're talking about solo queue, his ability to just outright walk to the ADC so reliably and just say you are dead, it's just a really nice, reliable thing. And when you're looking at solo queue, the key word you're looking for is reliable. And a Shaco, once he's properly ahead, will always able to say, oh, that mage, no problem. That ADC, no problem. That squishy top lane Fiora, no problem. And for the same reasons, it's also why I have Kane really high on this tier list. Kane might raise some eyebrows. A lot of people will say, well, Kane only has a 48% win rate, even though his play rate's kind of high. I would say Kane is just not that easy to play, and you have people who are still trying to ask themselves, which Kane form do we go for? I feel a big thing that holds Kane back is the fact he has so many playstyles and builds, and that really confuses people. And I would say people, even to this day, even though he's been out for a while, still have yet to properly master Kane and use him the way he's supposed to be played. Where both red form Kane and blue form Kane are both very good at getting into the enemy backline and just causing outright havoc. If you're going to play blue form Kane against squishy teams, he just one-shots people so quickly and reliably. Like, W and Q combo does such ridiculous damage. And then if you're going to play red form Kane, a lot of people agree with me when I say red form Kane is probably the best tank in the game for the jungle. Like, he's just so hard to kill. He heals so much. He does really decent damage. Kane is a champion I feel people need to really take the effort to learn him and just give this champion the chance he deserves. I feel people really need to watch the One Trick Kane players and see what they're actually capable of pulling off. And it's some pretty crazy stuff. Next up, I'm gonna talk about something else that is very controversial on this tier list that might surprise people, and that is Diana. Diana only has like a 46-47% win rate, depending on which website you're looking at. And I feel this goes into, once again, the same thing that what I said about Kane. I feel people just aren't used to playing jungle Diana yet. And I feel once people take the time to learn this champion reliably, you will find you have a very reliable jungle AP assassin, and I would say that's something we don't really have that any other champion does. Echo feels more like a bruiser when he plays, and Elise is just more of like she feels more like this. I don't know. She feels more like this diving one shot mage. It's kind of hard to describe what Elise is. I would say Diana is, when you look at this tier list, she's probably the most unique at doing what she does in the way she does it. And I think that her uniqueness makes her a very reliable tool where nobody just does it the way Diana does it. And I really like her. And when I watch good Diana players do what they're supposed to do, it just feels nice. And I don't know how else to describe it. Her QE resets very reliable. The way her R can just pull multiple people into her. I know how I want to describe her. She feels like a better version of AP Malphite. That's really the best way to describe it. She feels like a better, more mobile, dueling version of AP Malphite. Her numbers are really good, and I feel once people take the actual time to learn this champion, just like I said with Kane, you will be very satisfied with the results. Another champion that might surprise people on this tier list would be Ornn and Zac. So through the way the meta is changing, through the way itemization is changing, um, tank junglers aren't that bad an idea to go with anymore. And I feel a lot of it has to do with how they changed the jungle where it's easier to farm now and just play safe. I feel a lot of it has to do with the fact that Riot is kind of favoring just play slow and scale a bit. They're both just decent champions. They do decent damage. Their CC is very reliable. What they bring to their team is just it's just nothing but good things. And when you look at Zac's win rate in particular, you'll find it surprisingly very high. And the facts are the facts that tank junglers aren't a bad idea anymore. For the B section, I don't feel anything there is really surprising. What might surprise people is the fact that Rengar is solo. The reason why I place Rengar solo is just a really simple reason. When you're facing good support players, it's just impossible to play Rengar. He doesn't have a good clear speed. He doesn't do good early game ganks. The only way you can gank as Rengar is if you do lane ganks, and that kind of involves coordination with your teammates. When Rengar gets snowballing, he feels absurdly oppressive. And that's why I don't play some lore, because when he gets to do what he wants to do, he's a good champion. But a big problem is when you're facing a good Janna player, a good Lulu, a good Nami, just good support players make Rengar almost impossible to play. Good tank players make Rengar feel almost impossible to play. He's only really oppressive when you're facing these squishy teams that did not itemize or pick correctly against Rengar. And so from the fact that Rengar players are relying on the enemy team playing bad and picking the wrong champions, he's not the safest champion to one trick. I would say the C section is very normal stuff, nothing really surprising there. Weakest champion in this patch in the jungle that I really hope they fix. I want to see Silas Jungle come back. I know a lot of people would argue with me against this. I want to see Silas Jungle come back. It was nerfed into oblivion. I really hope Riot brings it back. So going into jungle, there's a lot of different playstyles that work. You can either play this heavy early game ganking route where you play stuff like Lee Sin, Reksai, Elise, you just gank like a madman. You could play stuff like Warrick, Karpis, or Zac, and you can just scale into the late game. You can just go for these outright one-shot type strategies like Diana, Kha'Zix, or Evelynn. Or you could be even a more supportive strategy like Ivern. There's many different strategies that are good in the jungle, and I would say jungle meta is pretty healthy right now. I would just say avoid anybody that's in C tier. Avoid most of the champions that are in B tier. And if you play anything that's in A or S right now, and you're gonna climb reliably. This is a good meta for jungle. Have fun. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to discuss them in the comment sections, and I'm more than happy to talk to any of you. Have a good day.